You know, I actually have seen this film before. I, like many other theater kids, have too witnessed 1961's West Side Story. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was freshman year of high school. We just finished reading Romeo and Juliet. After a month of reading that fucking shit, we got rewarded to be able to watch a movie in class. That movie being 1961's West Side Story. And I actually fucking hated the damn thing. But now, can't believe I'm about to admit this. After watching the 2021 remake and witnessing that film, I can't help but admit, can't confess that ever since I've seen that film, I got this energy with that soundtrack too that just makes me want to start. West Side Story, directed by Mr. Steven Spielberg, is the 2021 remake of the original 1961 film of the same name, being once again a classic Romeo and Juliet love story of two star-crossed lovers from rival gangs somehow manage to find love despite the odds, while also being a story of immigrants, specifically working-class immigrants still managing to find hope and even love despite the hardships and bigotry faced in 1950s New York. I got to see the film about 2 weeks ago now on a Dolby Digital screen with a lady friend of mine. So now after 2 weeks and too many rewatches of the original and the new one, without further ado, here's what I thought about la película. You know, actually being a theater kid, you would expect me to be absolutely off the walls excited. Or absolutely fucking pissed that they were remaking this film. I mean, it's supposed to be the classic love story. The classic film that brought Latin culture and music onto the mainstream. And the film that brought Romeo and Juliet back to mainstream audiences. What is there not to love? Look, I will admit, I never actually have seen a Broadway adaptation of the show, like a lot of my professors and film geeks keep fucking telling me to do. But the simple fact is, from everything I saw the 1961 original, I didn't get it. And look, that's not to say that there's still so many incredible things to love about the film. I rewatched it again after seeing the remake. There's so many still incredible things about it, such as the visuals, the cinematography, throughout most of the film. And even a lot of, yes, the performances. Rita Moreno steals the entire show, with her boyfriend not being too bad herself. But the point is that just like the way I compared 1933's King Kong, which I've seen plenty of times as well, the films are just simply outdated. There's too many things in the films that just do not connect with audiences anymore. Even a lot of things that can just simply rub people the wrong way. But then the first trailer dropped. Imax visuals of 1950s Nueva York, absolute stunning sequences of action and dance numbers, and returning stars from the original film, and an all-star Latin cast for the Sharks? I remembered why I loved Spielberg again. Spielberg wasn't just looking to retell the 61 film, he was looking to retell the 1959 Broadway with new characters and fully embracing the culture and lore of the original show. And then, the weekend premiere came. I got the screening for midnight to go see it with a date. I just finished my school play, tired as hell, with no absolute energy to do it. We went there to go watch it. The theater was near empty. Ladies and gentlemen, I was hooked. And then came the weekend premiere. I got a midnight screening to go see it with a date. I just finished my school's play, tired as hell, only my lady friend by my side and a pretty empty audience. Having no absolute energy to go watch this film, just getting it over with to see what the hype was about and see if it was all worth the wait. And ladies and gentlemen, I was hooked. The first 15 minutes of this film. The second you hear those iconic whistles in the background with the surround sound speakers, the IMAX pan of 1950s New York, all leading to this incredible standoff between the Jets and the Sharks, never before seen, with Spielberg's iconic style of action sequences that he's been known to do for the last few decades, all being ended off with an incredible performance of Puerto Rico's national anthem performed by the Sharks. A visual feast and a musical feast in the first 15 minutes of the film. Spielberg had just perfected what the original film was missing. And it was just the first 15 minutes. Look, all jokes and beef aside about the original film, it is a challenge to remake such a classic, especially a classic with such love and history as West Side Story. So when you hear someone like Steven Spielberg, the king of blockbusters, wanting to take a do at it, you really can't help but scratch your head. What the hell could he possibly bring to the table? But after you watch this film, you will be reminded why Spielberg and his friends are the king of blockbusters in the first place. The entire film is nothing but a visual and musical feast. Visual feast alone with the incredible New York skyscrapers and the dark and gritty noir style of the ghettos where the gangs live, with Spielberg somehow managing to mix both into making it into this magical world filled with wonder and excitement where everything just becomes a giant dance number or giant brawl between gangs. It never bores you. And of course, we get to the dance sequences. If there's anything that the 61 film perfected, it was the dance sequences. Without fail, whenever those dance sequences came up in the original film with that incredible energy and those stunning visuals and just the absolute killer performances by people such as Miss Rita Moreno herself, you couldn't fail but get hooked onto the story. How could a remake possibly top that? Two simple things. Bigger sets and even more color. Every sequence in this film somehow turns the film into a musical extravaganza, with the West Side slums of New York turning into the land of the Jets, the ballroom turning into a Latin dance-off and Latin party for mambo. And for America, Spielberg and the crew decided to turn New York into an absolute beautiful, stunning Latino festival with some of the craziest visuals I've ever seen for a song. But all that being said, that's not what made me fall in love with West Side Story in the first place. Those weren't the things that made me excited, speechless, and emotional. Those two simple things. The casting and the language. Whitewashing had always been a problem with the original West Side Story. It being a story about immigrants, Latin immigrants at that, and yet only having one Latin lead, that being Rita Moreno, where they even made her fucking wear brownface. Spielberg and the crew had promised to undo that for the remake of West Side Story. But Spielberg didn't just cast an all-Latin cast, even though he easily could have just done that. No. He went all the way. West Side Story is no longer just a story about two star-crossed lovers from different backgrounds. No. It is the story about the immigrant story, the Latin immigrant story, and an exploration and the celebration of their culture and our history, despite the hardship, despite the bigotry, and the fear and cruelty that we face, even by people that claim to be there to protect us. Another thing I absolutely loved about the intro to this film, to add to that, is the introduction to the cops. No longer just being a scene about trying to break up some rebellious teens. No. They reveal the true bigotry and corruption of the police force, especially in the late 50s, right in the beginning of the civil rights movement. Straight up calling the Sharks spics and threatening them with fear and bigotry and all kinds of horrible things, to even trying to help the Jets get them arrested and taken to jail. And that's what I absolutely adored and admired of this film. It's not just a celebration of immigrants and our culture and our history. It also shows the dark and ugly side, the brutal reality that my parents and my grandparents faced just a few decades ago, facing all kinds of horrific bigotry, threats, and fear of just wanting to come here and work, with some of the worst kind of insults and most ridiculous kind of things you can imagine. The whole, hell, for Christ's sake, the whole scenario of this film, the whole plot is about getting minorities kicked out of their neighborhood. The film is about gentrification, and they completely glossed over that in the original, and Spielberg makes sure that it is front and center from the very introduction to this film, to even straight up making the Jets look like some straight neo-Nazis in a lot of the scenes, which admittedly, it's kind of what they were going for in the first place. I mean, if the shoe fucking fits. And truly for me, one of the most simple and even possibly just unnecessary but most beautiful things that this film does is the unsubtitled dialogue in this film. A lot of these characters, clearly being of Latin background, speak Spanish. Steven Spielberg easily could have just had half of this film subtitled to help, easily connect to audiences a little more to these characters. But Spielberg, having a lot of experience working on Star Wars with his best buddy George Lucas back in the 70s, I think took something from that and remembered something of the beauty of a fantasy film, of exploring different cultures, even straight alien made-up cultures. The idea of not having to force people to understand and having to dumb down this new lore and these characters to audiences, but embrace the weirdness, embrace the foreignness of it, and encourage audiences to pay more attention. And as a Latin man, to see my language of Spanish just be put in pure subtitles, sin preocuparse de lo que van a pensar los otros audiencias, is something absolutely exciting. And got me a little teary-eyed to see that. An Imax blockbuster, a classic musical, just embracing my culture, to even just not worrying about subtitling the fucking words, because it encourages the audience and trusts them that much they'll be paying attention every way, or shit, encourage them enough to learn a new language and pick up a fucking book. For God's sake, there are fans of Game of Thrones that are now learning the Dothraki language and have been for years. If people are willing to learn the language of horse-riding horse lords that slaughter and invade fucking land, I think people can learn the language of some people that talk a little too loud and fucking love food and dance too much. And it's with all of that, the stunning IMAX-like visuals, the absolutely exciting and incredible dance and action sequences, the absolutely tear-jerking performances from new and returning actors, and the absolutely beautiful writing of exploring these cultures and celebrating the immigrant story from even the Jets' perspective, which I did not mention too much because there is not too much time to do this review and not spoil absolutely everything, is what makes Steven Spielberg's West Side Story a timeless classic. From a film that's already been now done twice, from a story that's possibly been told thousands of times on Broadway, Spielberg manages to bring this story back to life in a way that I never deemed possible. For a film that I never cared about ever since I saw it back in the 9th grade, got me emotional, excited, playing and singing the soundtrack every goddamn day. Because that's the power of filmmaking. That's the power of a damn good story. And if Peter Jackson can make some old movie about a giant monkey from the 1930s be exciting again, I think Steven Spielberg can make an immigrant story of two star-crossed lovers be just as exciting again, if not more. I'm going to give West Side Story a 9 out of 10. It would be a 10, but as I always say, let's not instantly go to calling it an instant classic in the first few fucking weeks of release. It's still just been out for just about to be a little over a month. I want to give it its time for audiences to really experience this film. 2021's West Side Story has already been out for 3 weeks. And it being Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, a remake of one of the most iconic musicals of all time, you'd assume it should have been the most easy film to promote, right? The easiest box office hit. It's barely going to make over $30 million in its third week. Now, there could be plenty of debate of the possibility that simply people do not want a movie like this now, or that simply people are sick of Spielberg movies or blockbusters, but for Christ's sake, even me saying those out loud, as much as you can try to make excuses about it, it's painfully obvious a true answer that has been happening for the entire fucking year post-pandemic that's been going on with strangely every single other movie that hasn't been Disney with the MCU. And even that wasn't foolproof. Studios do not seem to give a shit anymore about the theater experience, which wouldn't be a terrible problem in the first place. It wouldn't be nothing necessarily serious if they kept putting so much attention and pressure on cast and crews to be making these widescreen theater releases, to be putting so much money and bet and attention to the box office. And yet, when push comes to shove, strangely, always excitingly, eagerly want to release these films on streaming platforms first, or when they're actually out exclusively in theaters, aside from some exceptions, give no attention to at all. The fact that films like The Suicide Squad, from one of the greatest comedy directors, possibly of our generation, the guy that fucking made Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 could bomb, is no excuse. The fact that In the Heights, one of the most beloved musicals of all time, an all-star Latin cast, the actual first musical celebrating the Latin immigrant story, the immigrant story, could bomb in theaters. It's an absolute embarrassment and a tragedy. And what makes me so afraid of all this and nervous, truly, is because, yes, executive producers still deeply care about box office numbers, as they have for years. no matter how great the reviews are, no matter how much audiences can praise, no matter how many Oscars a film can win, if the numbers don't show, there's a reason why comic book films have been absolutely dominating for the last few decades. And more power to them. The people that are going to say that, oh, it's just simply because theaters are dying and people don't care about going to the movies anymore, I say bullshit. Spider-Man No Way Home has just made $1 billion in less than 2 weeks. One of the fastest grossing films in history. MCU and Disney had made it clear as day that simply with enough marketing and with enough attention and care being put into the marketing of these films, that you can have the story of a teenage boy dressing as a spider in tights be one of the biggest events of the year. And if they can make that an event, there is no reason why classic musicals simply celebrating the culture of people that speak another language and may have slightly darker skin should not be able to succeed, and should not be able to give the chance to succeed, especially by one of the greatest directors of all time. I really hope you guys get to check out this film. Please, if you haven't yet, go watch this in your biggest theater with all your friends, especially to the Latinos out there. No tienen excusa, güey. La mitad de la película está en español. No jodas. Thank you all for watching. As always, I'm actually filming this and finishing this up right in the middle of New Year's Eve. So now that I get the chance to say it before I forget, I hope you all had an absolutely wonderful year. This year has been nothing but a roller coaster to me. And though painfully, once again, I won't be able to actually have, my big end of the year videos and my big specials as I used to back in the day, but trust me, they're coming. They're going to be a little different this time. New things are coming. I still haven't forgotten to tell you guys about them. I really hope you guys enjoyed this review, though. If you did see West Side Story, what did you think of the new West Side Story? Did you enjoy it more than the original? Are you still a big fan of the whitewashed 1961 film? I'm kidding. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. But as always, thank you all for watching, and guys, Happy New Year.